Hey everyone, welcome to the episode of My Meds, where we blend psychopharmacology, real world research, and a passion for better, more equitable care. I am Lieutenant Piomio, PMH MP DNP students, and today we are diving into something close to my heart, the ADHD gaps. Who gets treated, who gets missed. If you ever wonder why some kids seems to get ADHD treatment while others fall through the crack, stay tuned. The today episode is going to open your eyes. So the study we are discussing today is by Yang and the colleagues. It's published in Psychiatric Service in 2022. The full citation is on the slide. If you want to check it out later, and trust me, it is worth reading in full. So, why does this topic matter, right? The ADHD is not rare. It is one of the most common childhood psychiatric diagnoses. And when treated well, kids with ADHD can absolutely thrive. But there's a this is the but, big but. Like not every child gets the same shot at the access. Racial and ethnic disparity persists in both access and utilization of ADHD treatments. This study bridges psychopharmacology with our duty toward diversity, equity, and inclusions. And it asks a bold question: who get treatment and who doesn't? It is a question we can't afford to ignore, especially if we want to serve all of our patients fairly. The study purpose was clear: evaluate disparities in ADHD treatment access and utilization, focusing specifically on racial and ethnic minority groups. The key research question was: do minority children with ADHD receive less treatment than white children? And they didn't just stop at getting in the door, they also looked at how much care these kids receive once they're in. Now, as a future PMHMP, we need to be asking this too, because disparities in access often relate into disparities in outcome. Now let's nerd out a bit, and then because the study design is solid. So in this study, the data came from a medical expenditure pattern survey, also known as MEPS, which is a nationally representative data set covering healthcare use and costs. The sample included 5,838 children aged 5 to 17 with ADHD. They analyzed outcome across white, black, Hispanic, and Asian children. Why does this matter? Because many studies skip including Asian children, and this one didn't. Inclusion matters, right? So the study used a cross-sectional design and multivariable regression analysis to examine disparities. So, what variable did they look at? As you can see over here, the independent variable included race and ethnicity, of course, but also age, sex, and perceived physical and mental health. They used Columbia Impairment Scales scores to estimate treatment's need, which I thought was smart because it helps account for severity. The dependent variables include access, right? Whether kids had ADHD related visit or received meds. Um, for the utilization, how many visits, how many prescriptions, and total expenditure were included. Now, this is the key because a lot of study lump these things together. This one didn't. They tease apart access versus utilization, which tell us where the real problem lie. The stats were pretty advanced, but here's the takeaway, right? They use logistic regression for access outcomes and generalized linear model for utilization. And they perform dual analysis, one using the Institute of Medicine's definitions of disparity, the other using residual direct effects or RDE methods, which adjust for socioeconomic status. It's a tricky but necessary step. Why does it matter? Because it helps isolate disparity caused by structural inequities, not just by income or education alone. Now, here is where the truth bombs start dropping. In terms of ADHD related visit, Black children were 15% less likely to have ADHD related visit. For Hispanic children, 12% less likely. For Asian children, 21% less likely. That's not a small gap. That is a canyon, right? For the medication access, what access was just as concerning. For the Black children, 8% less likely to receive ADHD medication. For Hispanic children, 11% less likely. For Asian children, a whopping 30% less likely. I mean, think about that, right? An Asian child with ADHD is almost one third less likely to get medication. As clinician, this should be a wake up call for us. Next, utilization, right? Once kids get in the door, the disparities shrink, but they don't vanish. For the prescription fills, Black and Asian children filled fewer ADHD prescriptions. For mental health expenditures, the Black children had 484 less in total expenditure. For Hispanic children, $415 less. This suggests that access is the main bottleneck, but once through, the kids may still experience subtle differences in care intensity. And in this slide, when we zoom out about ADHD, the disparity grow wider. So for the access to psychiatric care overall, the white children has 66%. For the Black children, it's about 50%. For the Hispanic children, 52%. And then Asian children is 39%. That's a huge equity issue, right? So the Asian children, especially, only 39% accessing needed psychiatric care. That's a statistic that should light a fire under us, right? Now, for the strength of the study, they used nationally represented sample, which is a big check mark, and there's a clear differentiation between access and utilization, which is huge, right? They also include Asian children, which is normally often overlooked in most study. They also use both IOM and RDE methods, giving us a richer, more nuanced picture for a large epidemiology study. I feel like this was very well designed. Of course, right, just like other study, they have limitations. The limitations are ADHD diagnosis was self-reported, right? They were not clinically confirmed. For MEPS only was uh, it was in English and Spanish only. So they only use two languages for that. So the language barrier was likely underrepresented, right? Another one is Asian subgroup was small, so the interpretation there needs caution. They are missing data on treatment preference and provider biases, both of which are a huge driver of disparity in real world care. In short, it's a great study, but not the final word, in my opinion. So, what are the big takeaway? First, right, access is a primary disparity driver in the study. Um, the issues start at the front door, right? They don't have not enough minority kids are getting into care. Second of all, there's structures and culture barriers matter, and also language barriers, um, culture stigma around ADHD and mental health, and the structure racism, and there is systemic poverty. There's also an implicit bias within healthcare setting. And third, solution must be layered, like meaning expand the telehealth and integrated care models, like improve language access services beyond English and Spanish, right? We can also do practice culture humility, not just competent. There's like true humility and openness when working with diverse family. And honestly, we as PMH MP are in a perfect position to lead on this. So my final thoughts here are these are not just numbers. They represent real kids, right? Kids who may struggle unnecessarily because of barriers they didn't create. The equity in ADHD care requires systematic change, yes, right? but it also requires us to show up differently in our practice. As future PMHMP, we need to 1. Advocate for better policy, 2. Educate ourselves on culture and structure barrier, and 3. Collaborate with families with humility, not assumptions. If we do this, we can help close this treatment gap one child at a time. Well, that's all for today. Thank you for joining me today. I hope this discussion leaves you inspired and motivated to help build a more equitable system for all children with ADHD. Until next time, stay curious, stay kind, and always advocate. This is Lieutenant Mio signing off.